Conversations from the Darkside. Please stand by.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, the third episode of the fifth season of Conversations from the Darkside. My name is Amigo Aaron, humbly yours, joined tonight, as always, by a man who snacks on danger and dines on death. Please, I beseech you, move your chair closer to your monitor, put your hands on the glass, and feel the raw energy from Rob Flack O'Hara.
You know, if I'd have known how many calories snacking on danger had, I would have taken it a little lighter. Right? Who knew?
Exactly. Flack, tonight's topic I find quite interesting. We're going to look into hexes, vexes, and curses. What is it that keeps this ancient tradition, this ancient folklore of hexes and curses alive in 2025? It seems strange to me that in a world filled with technology, that we still look back and believe that gypsies or Indian chiefs can curse people and ruin their lives or curse entire towns. What is it that keeps this sort of thing going this late in the game with so much technology and so much knowledge in the field?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with people's belief systems. And so just as we might say, like, there's nothing to voodoo, there's nothing to spells, there's nothing to hexes. Someone, a voodoo or a witch doctor might say there's nothing to prayers, or there's nothing to wishes or things like that, So I think that it all depends on your background and what you believe in. And I think there's still, not just America, but of course, we're in a global melting pot, right? So you have people of all different sorts of backgrounds and belief systems and everything else. So you never know, anything is possible out there.
I like what you said there. It's a sad day when we close our minds to any sort of unusual outside the realm of normality. We have to keep ourselves open because this sort of thing can sneak up on you if you decide to turn your back on it. Maybe not. Maybe you could just turn all this stuff up and nothing ever happened. I'm not going to take any chances myself, Flag. We got a lot of fun to get into tonight, but we're going to start off with a little segment that we've drummed up this year called the News Macabre. We got a bumper crop of news here, Flack. I'll let you lead the dance here. What's the first thing on the agenda?
Well, yeah, I wanted to surprise you with some of these news stories because I know in some of the previous episodes you did some of the heavy lifting, and it's always fun to hear some of these without knowing about them. So I kind of did some digging around on the old internet to find some interesting paranormal and stories from the dark side for you this week. So the first one is kind of a light story, but it's going to lead to a question I have for you. This weekend is Parapalooza. That is in Carlton, Ohio, and Parapalooza is a paranormal festival which is part of the Carroll County Squatch Fest. And it is a weekend-long event, and this is what struck me about this. I ran across, I think it was on YouTube, I actually saw it was an advertisement for this thing. And what they really push is it says, like all over the thing, it says, family picnic. They're going to have food trucks. They're going to have face painting. It says at the bottom, it says kid-friendly event. They're even going to have an inflatable Sasquatch there. And it says also they'll be doing Squatch hunts going through the forest looking for Sasquatch. But then it says in parentheses, not too scary. And so anyway, my question for you is that what do you think about the, kind of the family-friendly angle that this and some of these other types of things are taking? Do you like the fact that Bigfoot is something now that's for all ages, that's not too scary for kids to enjoy? Or are you like me, where, Bigfoot would beat up the $6 million man and maybe rip your face off?
Well, it's funny. Teresa gets I think it's a 4 times a year newsletter from a lake creature. I can't remember which one, but it's full. It's for kids. It's got puzzles. It's got coloring area and stuff. And this is a one of the water creatures from one of the Great Lakes, and it falls in the same category as this. And so it's funny. We definitely live at different times than when me and you were growing up, because I'm like you. Like Bigfoot, I remember distinctly having a nightmare one time where Bigfoot came into my backyard while I was playing, and I couldn't outrun him, and he got me. And then the end of the dream was me getting killed by Bigfoot, right?
Oh, well.
It wasn't me skipping through Bigfoot. Also, how do they know if these tours are family-friendly? They haven't caught the Bigfoot yet. What if
Right.
Bigfoot came into the group and started mauling suckers? So what do I really think of this? I think it's fine. I think it's okay to have. I go to Mothman. I used to go to Mothman every year. I've been to plenty of these festivals. They're always enjoyable for the whole family. They have, Mothman. You can go out and hunt the Mothman. Go out to the TNT area. All that jive. Because they know with some certainty that Mothman's not going to show up and try to fly off with the kids like an eagle with a baby. You know what I mean?
99%.
But I mean, I think what this says, though, is society, society likes its lore, right? It doesn't necessarily believe the lore. And at some point, I remember when I was a kid in Boy Scouts, they were like, yeah, we're going to go snipe hunting. I don't know what a snipe was, but they described it like the most horrific thing in the woods. And so when we went out to the woods, and all the counselors and scout leaders were chuckling as we were scared stupid out there because we didn't know what a snipe was, and they described it like this thing with fangs, But nowadays, I think they just tell the scouts, hey, let's go out and look for snipe. He's a friendly fellow, like Mickey Mouse. I think the creatures have left the realm of possible deadly creature and entered the realm of wacky tale of lore that everyone can enjoy. I mean, it's in some ways it's frustrating, I guess, to close, but in some ways, I guess it was inevitable. And at least the name is still out there, if not the actual, creature. So that's my thought on it.
I had a second thought about it, because my initial reaction was I don't like it. I don't like this, babyfication, whatever you want to call it, this watering down of Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like, I like Bigfoot as being this wild thing that's out there, and it's probably not, like, if you go out there, he ain't going to play patty cake with you, He's just going to eat you. But when it comes to the festival, I had a slight change of heart, and that was only because I thought about when I was a kid and reading some of those books that we talked about, like the Westwood books, and I forget what the other brand, you showed some last week, about the Bermuda Triangle, but those were books that were written for kids, and those were the things that kind of got us into some of the stuff that we were into later in life. So if we got to put up with face painting at a Bigfoot festival with kids, if that wins a couple over, then I guess I'm okay.
The difference is, though, those books are written for kids, but they were written from a factual standpoint. They didn't put pictures in the book of Bigfoot skipping through the woods or picking daisies. I used to have this UFO book.
Hey, can you pull that while you're talking? Can you pull the icon up from that page again?
Sure. But I used to go through. I used to have these books that would scare the total heck out of me back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I got a UFO book reading about Betty and Barney Hill being abducted,
right,
and stuff.
Right, and it was scary. That stuff. So these books, I mean, it's just different. Like I think they tried to be more realistic.
Look at this Bigfoot. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. He looks like I don't know. Remember what was that Land of the Lost? He looks like one of those guys more than a Bigfoot.
Chaka.
That's right. I mean, It's
like a scratch and sniff sticker.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel, and we grew up at a time, here we go, here comes old man Aaron's going to talk. There was no internet. There was no perpetual knowledge base. If a kid, and let's say a kid realistically believed that Bigfoot might exist, if he looked it up on YouTube or on the internet, he's going to find 10 million different people talking about 10 million different things, and it's going to get watered down. It's going to lose its effectiveness. What we had was one book that we found in the school library that opened the doors of our mind, the perceptual doors to the possibility of this stuff existing. It's just different.
Yeah. So, anyway, you know what? If you're in the Ohio area, I hope you go to it.
Yeah. It probably would be a lot of fun.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go get your face painted. But, as for me, I will take scary Bigfoot full of pain and death.
Yeah.
All right. Let's, I got another Bigfoot news story for you here. There is a new 3-part series called Bigfoot Took Her, which is going to be coming out. It's going to be streaming. I think it comes out next week. It looks like it comes out right around Halloween time. It's going to be on the Discovery Channel. And this is going back to a case from the 1980s. So this was about a teenage girl who disappeared. Her name was Teresa Beer. And it was kind of a famous case because there's a lot of, I mean, when you read the details of this case, it seems, like sometimes you watch an episode of Unsolved Mysteries and you go, it doesn't seem to be that unsolved. Like maybe the person was not caught, but there's not a huge mystery as to like the whodunit part of the story. And so the gist of the story is that this 16-year-old girl was allowed to go on a camping trip with a 43-year-old man who was a friend of their family. And the 43-year-old man took her out into the woods under the auspice of that they were maybe going to go find Bigfoot. And so after several days out in the Sierra National Forest, he came back without her and said, well, Bigfoot must have got her. He said, I don't know what happened to her. So
wow, that's how many parts is this miniseries? That seems like a pretty open and shut case to me.
Well, you would think so, but here's the problem. When they started asking local people in this area about, like investigating him and trying to find out the facts, they all went, no, we've all seen Bigfoot around here. It probably was Bigfoot. So the local people actually tried to give credence to this guy's story that it was Bigfoot. So I won't get too much into the details of the case, but I will tell you that this girl has never been found and her body has never been found. And so based off that, they've never filed charges against this guy because they said they could file charges like child endangerment or something because she disappeared under his watch. But if they did that, and then if they were to find her body later, they wouldn't be able to charge him again for the same crime. So, it is it's an unsolved case. This is a 3-part, little 3-part miniseries. Again, it's going to be on Wednesday, October 29th. So if you're looking for something right before Halloween, you want to catch that on the Discovery Channel. Let me ask you, what are the odds in court that you think that kind of defense would hold up, that you would just say, it wasn't me, it was Bigfoot?
Well, it depends on the year, I think. If this was the 1800s, maybe, something like that, you might have I mean, like I said, there was a ghost that spoke up for a lady here on a murder case. So they'll buy that stuff back in the old days. I'm surprised that this guy wasn't charged, frankly, in this. If you're an adult and you take someone's teenager, they're effectively your ward for that amount of time. You can't just leave and say, oh, she's gone. Whoa, sorry.
It must have been Bigfoot.
And plus, and let's look at this from even a more nutty standpoint. How many alleged kidnappings have been pointed at Bigfoot? Like, not there. I've never heard of one where he stolen someone permanently. So if
Right,
you look
what
at
would
it
he-
that,
yeah.
from that angle, it's not like Bigfoot. Let's say Bigfoot absolutely exists, and let's say he's absolutely in the woods where this lady was gone. Okay, has he ever kidnapped anybody else? I mean, conclusively, has he ever been charged with kidnapping? That'd just be like randomly picking anybody and saying, "Oh yeah, I guess who knows? I guess Bozo the Clown took her. Anybody could have taken her." So if you look at it from that aspect, it doesn't hold water either, does it? To me.
Well, then that's the thing is now you got to prosecute Bigfoot, which is a whole different.
Good luck with that
problem that you
subpoena.
have.
I just put it that way. I hate to be the guy
Yeah,
serving
you gotta
that
serve
one.
it to him.
I will say this: if anyone could find Bigfoot, it's the guys that serve those, because they're unbelievable. They're like ninjas and James Bond are all rolled into one and wrapped in like a Repo Man outfit. Like, those guys are good. So maybe this is a backdoor plan just to find Bigfoot. That's my guess, Flack.
Oh yeah, to get those guys on the case. So, yeah. Anyway, it was a crazy case, but
That is a wacky one.
And again, I want to find. Let me scroll back up. I just want to find the Bigfoot Took Her is the name of that. So I'll definitely be watching that. If we do a show on Halloween night, that would be the last Friday of the month. If we do that, we could definitely discuss that.
Do you, just before we move off this, do you have a favorite documentary, or I guess or even a semi-documentary on Bigfoot? I mean, have you seen something that really like made you stand up and look?
Oh boy. I don't know that I have a favorite. I mean, as a kid, I was just like I mean, this feels like a gimme type answer, but the In Search Of episode, and just because they went all into the Roger Patterson film, because that's what I was obsessed with as a kid, right? Was just watching that over and over and over. And a few years ago, they used I don't know if it was AI or what, but they the footage of Patterson's film is all herky jerky, and they took it and they basically made it where Bigfoot is steady.
Yeah.
So that's
the image we used in our opening, actually. I used that exactly as the footage. Fox did a documentary. It was the Decisive end-all documentary, according to them. This is back when they were doing Did We Land on the Moon, did that stuff. And they did one on Bigfoot. And I found it, especially and particularly highlighting that footage. And they did a good job stabilizing it and, zooming in and trying to bringing experts to determine the size of the creature or the person, whoever was in the thing. I thought it was quite fascinating. So I would put that quite at the top of the list. It's one of those we got you sort of like decide, we think we've got it type documentaries. They don't leave a whole lot open to interpretation. But I thought the technology they used at the time was quite cool. If I was going to pick any documentary, I think I mentioned this in the show before, but there's a great movie called Not Just Another Bigfoot Movie about these two guys in rural Ohio that go Bigfoot hunting in the woods near their house. It's more of a character study in the guys than it is a Bigfoot movie, but you get a certain insight into how the business of Bigfoot works that I found fascinating and angering. So I recommend that one too if you could dig that one up. I think it's quite good as well. On to the next one, Flack. What do you got for us?
Well, this one is not something that happened today, although it did happen on today's date. If you are, I know you are a fan of old UFO stories and sightings and things like that. You may recall the old Chattanooga, Tennessee UFO sighting that was where multiple people reported a cigar-shaped UFO. And the reason I threw that in here is because that happened on today's date all the way back in 1973. So that happened on October 17th, 1973. So if you don't remember the details of this particular sighting, this was they called it a cigar-shaped UFO. But this was the interesting thing about this sighting was there was a woman who called the local police, and then the sheriff said, he said, well, or not the sheriff, it was the sergeant, police sergeant. He goes, okay, there's this lunatic. And so he went out there, and then the sergeant goes, Yeah, there is. He goes, I've seen it. And so he chased it like to the next county, and then it flew like somewhere where he couldn't drive. Like it flew over these mountains, and then in the next county, there was a fire department, and so there was a fire captain, and I think there was like 6 firemen that were all out on this run, and they stopped and they go, there's a giant cigar-shaped thing flying over the city. And so anyway, this thing was spotted in many different places over many miles by people that you would consider to be trustworthy, right? So, I mean, you know, like I said, when a random lady calls in and says, I see something weird in the sky, I mean, she could be mistaken, or she could be, you know, just making up a story. Who knows, right? But then, like when you get, you know, police sergeant, you get fire department captains, you get all these different people that reported it. You know, it became one of those just unexplained sightings that, you know, there was it didn't crash, it didn't land. Nobody let anybody take close-up pictures of it. So, no, you know, who knows what it was that day, but that's a pretty famous sighting, and it happened on this day all the way back in 1973.
You know, it's funny because I remember, it's funny, we were just talking about that UFO book I had as a kid. They had a picture of a real close-up picture blown up of a cigar-shaped UFO, because that's something that you know, that's something you occasionally come across. You'll see a sighting of this thing, and it got me to thinking as you were talking about this, 1973. Any pictures that were taken in 73 or, you know, or earlier you could look at the pictures and you could pretty much determine if they were monkeyed with now with modern technology. And there's a cutoff point, and I don't, maybe you could tell me what date you think the cutoff point is, where you can't trust pictures anymore. And then there's also a cutoff date to where you can't trust video anymore, right? And so it's funny, those hazy, grainy photos and those like shaky videos are as close as we're probably ever going to get to actual proof of something, because that's the only things that you can be turned up now that can be believed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, you know, of course, the techniques that people used to fake photos back then wouldn't work today, right? Like, you know, you could take a Polaroid of a model hanging from a string, and the film itself just didn't have the resolution to capture that string, right? So you'd never be able to see that string. Whereas, you know, if you had even a 35 millimeter print or something like that, you might be able to do it. But definitely on a, you know, even on the camera that's on your phone, it would probably pick it up. And of course, you could put that into, you know, Photoshop or something like that will analyze it, and they have a lot better tools. I remember there was a UFO picture that was just an amazing picture that this pilot said he had taken out the window of the cockpit, I believe, of the plane. And then later it was proven that he had faked it he had taken a picture out of the window of the plane with his camera, and then when he came home, he had a print of it, and he had taken a button and laid it on the picture, and then took a picture of that. So it was just a button laying on the picture of the skyline. But back then, you know, the resolution just wasn't good enough. So when you looked at it, you were like, how did they do that? So that stuff just doesn't, no pun intended, but that doesn't fly anymore today. Whereas, you know, when did that stuff stop working? I think or stop being believable, like 3 days after they released Photoshop.
Yeah.
That was the end of it, right?
Yeah. It's and you know, it's funny, and now everyone on Earth has a high definition camera in their back pocket. They can take any number of pictures of any number of things, and the problem is it's so easy to generate or manipulate video and pictures now that it almost renders this incredible tool worthless. But I mean, in the eyes of the public, anyway. I mean, if you see a ghost, you take your phone out and you shoot a picture of a ghost, and you know it's a ghost, and you know you didn't fake it, you're going to be going through hell and perdition to try to convince everyone else. And the same thing if you catch a UFO one there, because there's been so many. I mean, they make apps for the phones to generate ghost content, for example, or UFOs, and people do it, for attention, or try to get over on Instagram or whatever. It's really killed that line of investigation. Plus, if you'll recall, the incredible load of ghost shows, TV shows from the 2000s there, and we know for a fact because they were caught several times. Several of these shows just straight up made stuff up, manipulated stuff. So they even those shows that have all their fans. I used to go to these conventions. These people would get mobbed for how popular they were. But I mean, when it comes to hard, cold evidence, it's a TV show. It's entertainment. Just like if you take a picture of a button on a photo, you're trying to get yourself over with it, and it pretty much ruined that line of interest when it comes to photos and video.
Well, this week we spent some time in a hotel room, and I was just flipping channels, and there's that, I think it's like Ghost Fact or Fiction, something like that, or whatever, Paranormal Fact or Fiction, and people submit videos, and I'm telling you, on this show, they went through 10 videos where, like, you would think half the houses in America have doors that open and shut by themselves, or things that roll across the room. Like, I've never... You know what I mean? Like it's commonplace, so yeah, like if something in that in your house happened, like if I had a door that kept opening and you filmed it, who would believe me today? Because you just see it all the time now.
Yeah, and that's the problem. With all that said, though, the sighting in 1973, that's why I bring it up, because you can actually there's more weight to these, or stuff like the Betty and Barney Hill stuff, where not only was that sort of thing not as prevalent, but it was looked down upon. Like, especially with those two, for example, they were already sort of pariahs in their own time. The last thing they wanted to do was draw undue attention to themselves. Like, so that's the sort of thing that gives that sort of thing weight. Or an Air Force pilot over Vietnam sees something. There's weight to that because it's not something they wanted to happen. So you give it a little more credence.
Yeah.
What you got next, Flacker?
A couple other quick things. One was I just read a news story. This is about a guy that his name is Neil Randall, and he is in the news right now because he is one of the people that does dowsing. So I know you know what dowsing is.
Absolutely.
It's the people that use the rods to find water, and of course it's a strange phenomenon because science will tell you it's not possible, and then sometimes these people are able to do it. So, and there's a lot of like farmers and people that rely on that sort of thing. So, I know that they've tried to prove it, disprove it, but it's a strange phenomenon. So we'll leave it at that. But the reason that this guy is in the news is because he has been helping these Native Americans in his part of the country find unmarked graves. And so he basically says that he believes that once these people have been buried in unmarked graves, that it disturbs the earth and it changes the magnetic field in that area. And so he has been dowsing to help these people find loved ones that were left behind in unmarked graves. And the weird thing is that he's been sort of successful with it. So that's kind of a strange thing. What's your take on dowsing and then specifically, what do you think about this story?
Have you ever tried it?
I've not. No,
I have actually. I've been with groups that have dowsing rods, or there's I don't remember the name of the sort of branch they use. I've used both, and I've heard of so many people finding wells by doing it that it makes you wonder what kind of weird power that they possess. I mean, I don't think I believe them, but I know people that have hired dowsers to find wells, and I've never heard about anybody looking for remains with them. But that doesn't surprise me that much. Now, the reasoning behind this, who knows? And the thing is, there could be something to dowsing that we don't understand. Maybe some people have the innate ability to be affected by the magnetic pull of the Earth. Maybe this guy's not wrong. Maybe when the Earth is disturbed, there's a difference in the waves coming off it. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but I will say, having walked around with dowsing rods, it is they do tend to do what they do. I mean, really, whether you're controlling them or like subconsciously, because I've made a personal effort to not affect them. It's held them, walked around. They do things. They do turn. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the magnetic pull of true north or ghosts. I have no idea. Well, what do you think?
This is what I would say to you. Number one, like I've watched, like, I know that Amazing Randy had set up some tests and he had people do it and they could not do it. Like, under scientific conditions, they couldn't reliably do it, right? That being said, when they go out, these people go out in the field and they find, like, they're able to do it. They find water, and this guy apparently has a pretty good record of finding these unmarked graves. So it's weird when you say there's no, like, I won't say that there's no reason for it to work. But what I'll say is maybe we don't understand why it works. You know what I mean? Just like what you said, like, maybe there is something, maybe it does affect it. Maybe certain people can feel the difference in that. You know, I mean, you ever felt somebody, you ever walk in a room and you feel someone's staring at you? Like, you can't feel someone's eyeballs on you, but you feel it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, we were just talking about this. This is a strange example. Bear with me. But my wife and I were watching one of these shows, like one of the many shows where they show internet clips. Basically, we call it, like, people getting hurt show, whatever, right? Like, just like internet clips of people getting hurt.
Fails.
And every time somebody would fall, I would get that feeling in my stomach. You know what I mean? Like, I just felt like, that pit in your stomach. And then, so there's nothing that's happening on the TV. There's no connection between what I just saw and me physically, but I'm still getting that feeling. And so you think, well, maybe my brain sees someone else get hurt and but we don't really know. I don't know why my stomach does that. So, you know what I mean? Like maybe people have this a feeling like that whenever they're standing over water or something. Maybe they're feeling something that other people don't feel. I don't know. I can't explain.
Interesting assessment. I think you never know, Flack. That's one. As many things as I've poo-pooed over the years, that one's one that I don't know for sure about, I will say.
Yeah. So, anyway, I have one last thing for you. This is another TV show. If you are, and I love all these things that come out. Like, man, I watch all those reality, like, jack-o'-lantern carving stuff, and I'll watch Halloween, Halloween cupcakes. I watch them all. I love it all. Just anything that's Halloween, I'll watch it, right? But HGTV is back with season 2 of Scariest Houses in America, or Scariest House in America. And so they have another show, like, they did a spinoff of this called The Ugliest House in America. But what they do is they pick different regions, like the New England region and the Midwest and different areas, and they'll pick like 3 houses, and they go and they send the host. It's the comedian. Her name is Retta. She was the lady that was on Parks and Rec, and so they send her out, and they send her to all these houses, and at the end of each episode, she looks at 3 houses, and then they pick, which one they think is the scariest, and they do it all around, and then it's like a, pretty simple. At the end, they just pick a winner, and the winner gets a $150,000 makeover on their house. Now, I don't think season 2. I know, right? So season 2 hasn't kicked off yet. It's getting ready to start, but I watched season 1 last year, and I would say, like, their category of scary houses varies Some of them are scary because like they're dangerous, right? Like there was I remember there was one house that was made of, like there was a catwalk and there was an elevator that you had to take, but the elevator only went from the second to third floor. And I mean, like there was one house I remember that it was this big, gigantic house. Like when you saw it outside, it was a really nice looking house. And the front half of the house, when they went through the tour, was really nice. And then the back half, which they had not renovated yet, you could see was still the county jail. So this had been the county jail, and it still had all the old jail cells. And I mean, it was just metal cells with the doors and the bars and everything. So they hadn't got that far, you know. There was one house I remember that they had. This guy had drilled a 30 or 35 foot well down to get water and then built his house around it. And so it's a relatively normal looking house, but in the living room is a 35 foot deep well. In a giant hole in his living room. So
that is, yeah, I've been places where there was a well in the basement, but I've never been to one where there was a well in the living room. Clearly a one-story home. That's bizarre. That, you know, if you've ever heard of, what was the name of that place? It was Music World, Bob Mackey's Music World, very famous haunted ghost joint. It was between, in fact, I know Larry's in the chat. I know he's been there as well. Bob Mackey's Music World, but amongst its many problems are that it had a well in the bottom of it. And it was a creepy hole. I'd say digging a deep well in your house, you're asking for trouble. You know, right there.
Not good foundation thing. There was, I remember there was one people, and the thing that was about their house, so a scary house, was that they had openings, like things that kept coming in, and they kept getting bats in their house. And so, you know, the old style beds where they would have like a canopy, you know, over the bed.
Always wanted one of those.
These people. Yeah, well, this guy had one because he said he kept waking up because bats were hitting him in the face while he was sleeping. They were coming through, so he had to like basically make a tent over his bed. So, but I will say this though, that there's some of the houses are scary because they have been decorated to look like a haunted house. You know what I mean? Like they have all the walls are red. They've got red furniture. And there was one where it was like, oh, this room is full of creepy dolls. Well, they don't live there. Like you could throw out creepy dolls if you don't want them there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those houses don't typically win because I don't think they want a $150,000 makeover. I think they like their house looking that way, you know. But I mean, if you got a bat problem, then maybe or a well in your living room, then you could probably use the money. So, anyway, yeah, season 2. If you're looking for something else to watch this Halloween season, they go and they show all these house. The commercial for this season, one of the houses that they show was like a mortuary. And as they're going on the tour, they're like, hey, watch out, because that's the thing where they slid the coffins up and down into the basement. And then this is the stone they lift where after they would drain, you know, the bodies, like the fluids go under the house and it would go out this way or whatever. So again, I don't know, not necessarily where I want to live, but
I don't think so. You know, I wish I still owned Mud Mountain because I could get them. Maybe I could get some money to renovate that joint. It was pretty spooky up there, and everyone I ever had come up there would comment to me how creepy it was, and how they thought it was haunted. Which is, I mean, it's Evil Dead house like in its appearance, except the Evil Dead house is easier to get to, and it was a lot safer to walk into than this place was. So, you know, I guess I'll finish us up here. So I did in fact put one in this time around. I stumbled upon this, and this is only coincidental to what we talk about, but I thought it worked. So. You know, if you know anything about anything, you've heard of the Winchester Mystery House. In fact, Flack, you've been to there, haven't you? The Winchester House.
No, I haven't been there.
Oh,
I think Pat Billy had been there.
That's
He was
right.
telling us about it at Boat
That's
Fest.
right. It was
Yeah.
Packabilly that was there.
Yeah.
And so, pinball's back. If you're a pinball fan. Oh, that's right. TSI Matt's been there, and he's in the chat, too.
Nice.
And so what they've done here is a new theme for a new machine coming out. They've themed it as the Winchester Mystery House pinball machine. It's completely themed off the house. In case you don't know what it is, the Winchester house was built on the fortune from the gun manufacturer, and I believe how it goes, Flack, is the widow of the guy who owned the fortune. I believe it was his widow. Now, allegedly, you could, and I've heard different tales, but the theory was she never wanted to sleep in the same room twice in the house. She's afraid of spirits and whatnot, and so she perpetually had the house worked on for years and years and years, and so there are paths in the house and staircases that just lead to dead ends. There's all sorts of crazy twists and turns in the house. It's got hundreds of rooms, I believe. It's a massive mansion. And so what they've done with this pinball machine is they've actually got entire sections of the playfield that will rotate and change the way that the path of the ball. It's pretty neat concept for a pinball machine. What do you think about it's funny. Most pinball machines now are almost always licensed bands, licensed movies, or classic TV shows. What do you think of the idea that they've licensed the Winchester Mystery House for the theme of this one, Flack?
Well, I mean, first of all, I love it. It reminds me almost like a throwback to the either Fun House or Twilight Zone, like those types of pinball machines. I would say the downside to it is, from what I understand, they are planning on offering hundreds and hundreds of add-ons. Add-ons will never stop. You'll just be perpetually having to buy add-ons for the rest of it.
Very good, Flack. They should get you on board up there.
I mean, I think here's a question for you: is like the last few new pinball machines. Going back a few years, like there was the Metallica one, right? But then there was the Wizard of Oz one. I know there was a Jaws one last year. Do you think this has enough mass market appeal? Like, are people going to be familiar with this story?
Well, that is the question, because you're right. I mean, for example, there was just an Evil Dead pinball machine that was released, and which I thought to myself, that's a pretty popular property now, And there's a Dungeons and Dragons pinball machine that was released this year has been real popular. Many times there's been Halloween and Friday the 13th. Everyone gets one that's a big, Elvira just had a new one released. But occasionally you'll get one of these that's a smaller property. But what they'll do is they'll run a limited number of these, and they'll sell every single one of them because the collector market's insane. And then after that, they don't have to sell all that many because they've already made their money. So I absolutely think it'll be successful, and I think they'll do quite well with it. I like some of the accents on it. They've got sort of a Ouija board front. The front part of it looks like a Ouija board. The back glass is nice. Okay. It's got a real interesting look to it. I've never heard of the manufacturer either, so I don't know who's making it. I don't know what their pedigree is, but I think it's a cool theme. I thought if it was somewhat fitting for this show, and I thought, and of course, I would love to have one of these things, but I'm sure I have no doubt that it can't be had for under 10 G's. Flack.
Yeah. Well, at least, I know. Years ago, 10 years ago, my buddy bought a new.
In a world where cryptids emerge.
Legacy the Tron original pinball table, and it was like 9,000, and that was 10 years ago. That was before all the interactive stuff on the screens and stuff now. So it wouldn't surprise me if do you know when the release date is? This going to be around Halloween release, or do you know?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. I'm looking for a release date on it right now. Let me see if I can find one. I should have looked this up ahead of time. Let me see if they've got. First of all, it's already sold out. In case you were wondering, So that ends that speculation. They've already sold the first run, so it doesn't really matter when it's selling. I guess it's selling when it does. I know it just got announced the other day, so I mean I'm sure it won't be this year. But they've already. Could you sold? They'll probably. I bet they ran 2,000 of these, maybe less than that, maybe 500. But they probably sold them at a ludicrous price. So I'm not surprised that they're all gone. Hey, they've got a formula now and they stick to it. You know what I mean? All right. Well, I think that closes up the news, Macabre. When we come back, we're going to dive in head first into the realm of hexes, vexes, and curses. We've got some interesting items coming up, so stick around, and we'll be back after this short break. You are listening to or seeing Conversations from the Darkside.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
And we are back from Conversations from the Darkside. You know, this is an appropriate week to talk about curses, Flack, because I feel like I'm under a perpetual production curse sometimes. But hopefully I've beat these demons down and get back into the action here. This is a perfect week.
You got Winchestered.
Yeah, no kidding. The thing is, I'm slowly removing parts of my home. Eventually it'll be one outhouse. That'll be it. That's the Winchester. So, you know, I wanted to start off, you know, I don't want to sound like a homer, you know, but sometimes you can't help yourself. Despite what the news story said last week about the most haunted states, West Virginia is rich in weirdness, hauntings, and overall strangeness. And when it comes to curses, and I don't know how many people can say this, but we've got a huge curse that everyone around knows about. And so when Flack suggested the topic, I'm like, I got one right now. And I'm going to talk about the curse of Chief Cornstalk. Have you ever heard about this one, Flack?
Never. What a name.
Yeah, so let me get into it here. This is something that's pretty well known all over this part of the state in West Virginia. So Chief Cornstalk was a Shawnee, Native American Shawnee leader in the area that's known today as the Kanawha and Ohio River Valley. So right all up through here. In the 1770s, the tribes in the area formed a coalition to keep settlers out of here because settlers were encroaching on their traditional areas, you know. I mean, Native Americans didn't really have a concept of owning land per se, but they moved in certain areas, and certain areas were off limits. Particularly Kanawha, the Kanawha Valley was known for, you know, land of evil spirits and stuff. So I mean, it wasn't a popular place to go anyway. Anyway, you can imagine the settlers weren't too keen on that, and a battle took place in 1774 that led to a number of the people that were moving into their territory being killed. But in the process, they killed double the amount of Native Americans. So there was a lot of death dealt.
Oh, boy.
And those who were left moved and built a fort at Point Pleasant. You've probably heard of it. This is the home of the Mothman, among other things. And this fort was built, and I've been to the site of the fort. I think you've been there, too. I don't know if you knew that or not, but you probably were.
With somebody.
The fort is right at where the rivers meet. And the Native Americans were not, contrary to popular belief, these guys weren't idiots. They knew that they were eventually going to have to work something out with the settlers. And so eventually, Chief Cornstalk attempted to make peace with the settlers in the area, and it actually succeeded, and it worked. And things were prosperous until about 1777, so a couple years where everybody got along. So you had outside forces that were talking with the Native Americans, and those forces were the British. As you can imagine, 1776 was right before 1777, and the British were like, "Hey, do you want these stupid settlers? You know, how about we're not bad, the Brits, you know." And so they talked a bunch of the local tribes into getting them back into it with the colonists. Now, Chief Cornstalk could see through this subterfuge. He went to warn the people in the fort that an attack was imminent, and that he couldn't stop his own people from joining. So even Cornstalk couldn't talk his own tribesmen from getting in on the action. You can imagine, because there's a lot of hatred given the situation. So anyway, Cornstalk and a couple other of his brothers were taken hostage. Not his actual brothers, but his Native American brothers. They were sort of taken hostage, quote unquote. You'll see that a lot, and kept at the fort. It wasn't really a hostage situation per se, because Cornstalk sort of volunteered to like try to cool things off by sticking around, trying to work with the people at the fort. So they hoped that if he was there, no one would attack the fort. And eventually, Cornstalk's son, Litipisco, came to see Cornstalk. He also was captured. But unfortunately, a couple days later, soldiers stationed at the fort were ambushed by Indians coming out to hunt. So they left the fort, they got ambushed. Guess what? They weren't happy, and the colonists at the fort decided to seek revenge, and how they sought revenge was massacring Cornstalk and the others in a brutal attack. They brutally slaughtered Cornstalk's son right in front of his eyes, and then eventually they killed him too. I mean, yeah, they weren't screwing around, because then you can understand that too, that element of it, because they were scared. They had just gotten attacked, So there's a lot of fault to go around. So now Cornstalk issued forth a legendary curse when this happened. Now I'll get into how realistic this is in a moment, but here's the curse as it has been repeated over the years. I was the borderman's friend. This is Cornstalk speaking. Many times I've saved him and his people from harm. I never warred with you, but only to protect our wigwams and lands. I refused to join your pale-faced enemies with the redcoats. I came to the fort as your friend, and you murdered me. You were murdered by my side, my young son. For this, may the curse of the Great Spirit rest upon this land. May it be blighted by nature. May it even be blighted in its hopes. May the strength of its peoples be paralyzed by the stain of our blood. Pretty good curse.
Ouch.
Pretty good curse.
He's pretty upset.
He's pretty pissed off. I mean, getting killed will make you angry. It's funny how that works.
Yeah. Doesn't do that to you.
So the curse has been passed. This curse has been passed down for a long time. I mean, you got to think this was the late 1770s, and we're still talking about it. That's the kind of news it made. And so it's funny, people all throughout the 1800s believed in this curse and believed it was taking effect. And of course, guess what? A lot of weird things have befallen Point Pleasant over the years. So, of course, the curse gets blamed for everything. But I'll run through a couple things that are 100% exclusively dedicated to the curse. The worst coal mine disaster in American history took place in Montague, West Virginia, on December 6th of 1907. They mixed that in with the curse. In June of 1944, 150 people were killed when a tornado ripped through the area. Here's a big one: the 1967 Silver Bridge disaster. Which also sometimes gets blamed on the Mothman. That killed 46 people on the bridge that died in the frigid Ohio River. There was a plane crash in 1968 that gets blamed on it. There was a plane crash in 1970 with 75 people on it that got killed. In 1976, the town of Point Pleasant was rocked in the middle of the night by an explosion at the Mason County Jail. This is another one that's directly tied to the curse. The jail exploded. Housed in the jail was a woman named Harriet Sick, who had been arrested for murder of her infant daughter, but she was killed. Her husband had came to the jail with a suitcase full of explosives to kill himself and his wife and destroy the building. It worked. So I mean, these keep going on. Now, like, these are in the 70s, but in the 1800s, Chief Cornstalk's curse was sort of, but it was almost like a joke, I guess. Like, if you were to stub your toe or step in a post hole, that's Chief Cornstalk. Yeah. He's at it. That's Chief Cornstalk. So it's almost like they didn't take it as seriously as it's taken now, which is sort of funny. Yeah. Now, I was talking to Teresa about this, the curse, and she does a lot of research, and she researched this, and I used her Teresa's Haunted History for a lot of the information here. There's a decent probability that this curse came from a grade school play in the 1800s. It's possible, yeah, because there were some plays where they would reenact some of this stuff, and that's exactly what is possible that this came from. It is interesting that a guy who was mindlessly slaughtered by angry colonists would have time to bellow out that articulate speech. You know what I mean?
Have it ready, right?
Right,
yeah,
to have it ready to go. So one would wonder if he could pull that off. So, where do this is the first time a guy has cursed like a whole area,
Yeah.
Point Pleasant, I've mentioned this before, it's got a weird vibe. It's got a weird feeling down there. The rivers meet. It could be almost like we were talking about the dowsing rods. There could just be some sort of gravity well or magnetic thing. Something that gives you a feeling of unease. What do you think about the possibility that someone could die so horribly and cast a curse on the countryside?
Well, I'd like to say that I don't believe it. However, as you know, I went to Point Pleasant with you and Teresa, and we went to lunch, and I ordered a burger medium rare, and when I got it, it was just medium.
That's the curse?
Cornstalk coming for me.
Now,
I don't know. You know what though? Like, here's the problem with these things. You know what the problem is that, like if he had said, and by the way, I'm going to make a plane crash in 200 years when they invent airplanes or something, like that would be something, right? But now it's like the reverse is true. Like whenever things happen, you just go, oh, I'm blaming it on this. I'm blaming it on this, so even if there were a curse, how would you know which of the things are coincidence and which are the things that are part of the curse?
Yeah. I mean, valid point. I should mention, and Teresa also wanted me to make sure I mentioned this, and this could be an issue. So of course, with Cornstalk's death, Cornstalk was a huge deal, and his remains were buried. But I think Teresa, they've been buried and reburied like 14 times, some ludicrous number. Oh. There's a monument right where the rivers meet in Point Pleasant, and now his remains, such as they are buried there. Like I said, a metal box there. They've been moved around some too, so there could be a spiritual element to the curse. Mm-hmm. Maybe the locals still feel guilty for the way that went down. That's always a possibility. If you go to this area and the area around the flood wall in Point Pleasant, this whole story is sort of like they've got these beautiful artistic paintings on the flood walls of all this stuff happening. And so you could tell it's something, the history of it, whether you believe the curse or not, it's something that has maintained its power over all these years. So maybe just the power of the story is a curse in itself.
Well, there are certain things that, like one of the stories that I have for you later is a similar thing where someone was wrongly killed, and it's like in that final moment, they're like, you're gonna pay for it. I'm cursing, whether it's the people, whether it's the, the area, whether it's whatever it is, it's like that moment of anger, like you're channeling that much anger at that exact time. I could see maybe that could have something to do with it. And then I think it goes without saying, like we've both seen enough horror movies, when you start moving around people's bones and stuff, like it's never a good idea. You know what I mean? And I think like you gotta leave the dead in peace. You know what I mean? Don't start moving people's bones around and stuff, because bad things always happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I found that I'm a history buff as well as a seeker of the unknown, and so I love it when the two worlds intertwine like they do here. And just to close shop on this, Cornstalk in his death is much more revered than he was when he was alive. right near Point Pleasant is Chief Cornstalk's reserve, like a big giant like a wilderness reserve, like a park, but it's like several mountains, and people. I think people understand the kind of figure he was, a tragic figure. So I suppose, and I should mention, the curse was supposedly only 100 years, and you'll notice that a lot of stuff I mentioned happened, well after the 100-year mark, 200 years, in fact. Now there have been some people that claim that the curse was misinterpreted. He meant 200 years, so you could do the math on that. But I'd like to think that by now, hopefully, the old chief is going to lighten up and let Point Pleasant breathe a little bit. I mean, we've already got the Mothman to deal with and all that in that huge TNT area. The last thing we need is the chief bringing down the fury on us for another 100 years. So,
well, that's my question for you is, so assuming that they're like that there is something to this, how does it end? How do you make amends?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I've got an idea. I mean, I suppose we could revert back to the way it was when he was killed. But I mean, I think that they took care of the remains for the fellows. I think eventually they put them in places of respect. That goes a long way, I think. But after that, or maybe just Point Pleasant's just in a bad spot, and maybe the chief didn't do anything. He may not even said that stuff. He may have just died, and then. Maybe the guilt got him. Don't know. It's a strange one, Flack, but that's the way curses are. Speaking of which, what have you got to bring to the table here?
Ever since we brought up this idea about hexes and vexes, curses, all these sorts of things, I did a lot of digging. Of course, there's a lot of famous old stories, but I ran across one that was relatively new. This is a story from 2019, and that jumped out at me. And the headline of this story said, court case chaos after defendant tries to cast curse on judge. So this happened in 2019. This was after, they had the Charlotte riots in 2016. And as a result of that, there was some people who were unfortunately killed, and there was someone who was arrested for one of the murders, and he got put on trial. He went on trial for murder. It was actually those were the protests that were over a police shooting and so on and so forth. But anyway, so this guy went on trial in 2019. His name was Raquam Borum. And when they got him in right off the bat, they were doing like the interview, like the taped interview, and he immediately confessed. Like it was a bad deal, it was one of those things where he said he wasn't aiming at anyone when he was shooting, but he did end up shooting and killing somebody. So the judge in this case is the Honorable Gregory R. Hayes. And so, as you know, it's bad news for defendants if you threaten the life of the judge. You're not supposed to do that. It's actually a felony to threaten the life, I think, of any federal employee, but definitely the judge of your case. That's not a good idea.
It's not a good career move, that's for sure.
Right. And so basically it got out that the defendant had threatened the life of the judge. And so the defense asked for the judge to recuse himself from this case because the defendant had threatened his life. And so they came back in court. And then they had a recording, but the prosecution also got the recording, and they said, before you recuse yourself from the case, let's hear the recording. And so what was on the recording was this Raquam had called his mother and said, listen, I need you to look for a voodoo spiritualist that can change my luck. He said, I want you to put a curse on this judge, and I want you to change the outcome of this case. So, I mean, when all else fails, when you go in, when you've been arrested and you've admitted, you've confessed to murder, and you got nothing else, I guess this is your next plan of attack.
I love it.
Is to hire a voodoo spiritualist and see if they can help affect the case. So the judge said that it was not a credible threat on his life, and based off that, he would not be stepping down. So I could have left it at that, but I wanted to look into this a little bit deeper. So I did some Googling to say how common is this, and it turns out it's pretty common.
Really?
Yeah, you know, especially people if they have like of actual like African American descent, or they have ties, you know, to voodoo or hoodoo culture, things like that. That this is actually pretty common. So but one of the things that they said is that for the spiritual, for the thing to work, you're not supposed to tell anybody. It's kind of like when you would make a wish when you were a kid. If you tell somebody, it doesn't come true. So it's that kind of thing. So you know, once they found out about it, that this curse wouldn't have come true. But this was what interested me. I did a little bit more digging because I wanted to find out not just how common this is. What I wanted to find out is this actually illegal? Now, so we know that it's illegal to threaten the life of a judge,
sure,
right? And so this is what I found out. I thought this was kind of interesting. Is it illegal to hire a voodoo spiritualist to threaten or to change the outcome of your court case? And the thing is, it depends. So, if you are directly threatening, like I said, the life or the safety of a judge or his family or something like that, that's a direct threat, right? And so that's illegal. Also, if you're doing it in like in the courtroom, then that could be like contempt of court, right? So you could do that. However, there has been a precedent set that defendants, just like all people, have religious freedom, right? So it would be the same as if you went back to your jail cell and you said, oh, I pray that I get off or something like that, or I hope the judge gets sick tomorrow and can't make it in, and then I get let off, right? So really it falls under that same ruling that is covered by freedom of religion in America. So is it you can't directly threaten the life of a judge. You know, you can't disrupt the court proceedings, but is it legal to contact your voodoo spiritualist and try to get them to change the outcome of a case? It looks like that might actually be legal. So I don't know if you know that or not, but I thought you'd enjoy that story.
That is quite I never thought about it, to be honest with you. You know, you remember in Major League where that fellow couldn't hit the slider, I believe it was.
Oh yeah.
And so he had the voodoo god in his locker, and he would pour rum in there, and I could see someone doing that to a judge, or maybe even breaking out the old voodoo doll, you know, on the judge. I mean,
stick pins in them.
Yeah, that's right. Or hit him with a gavel a bunch of times. You know, it's funny. There it is. Nobody steals Joe Boo's rum. It never occurred to me the legality of curses or hexes, or using a religious entity to alter the fate of someone in a proceeding. Because if you can do that, why mess with the judge? You could have him screw with the guy that is guard your cell, you know, or have him, or the guy that unlocks it. Maybe the guy suddenly forgets to do it. You can just have him do that. You can voodoo your way right out of the prison.
Well, but here's the takeaway for this guy: didn't work. So that's why probably why that's why they don't do it. It did not get him off. So
I can tell you the kind of magic it takes to work your way out of a court case. I go to court more than anybody. In fact, I just thankfully slipped through yet another subpoena today after the fella settled. I was scheduled to go in today, and the number one way I see activities go down to courtroom is when the super sexy defendant's attorney comes rolling in with the stiletto heels and the bottom of her shoes are red and she's wearing a skin-tight outfit and she's playing kissy face with the prosecutor, the judge. That works more than just about anything that I've seen so far. Although there's some gnarled wizard defense attorneys that are also pretty magical with their cross-examinations and whatnot. But I've never seen anyone actually magically affect the outcome. But now I'm intrigued by that. I'd love to see that someone try.
So women like that could be a curse of their own. So
oh, geez, yeah, you ain't kidding. Hey, listen, before we go to break, I wanted to mention something. We actually got a question on the Discord. It's our buddy TSI Matt, and this seems like a good place to stick this in here. Let's say you're the judge, Flack, for example, or maybe you're one of the people in Point Pleasant. Matt's question asks, if one were hexed, vexed, cursed, etc., but did not know for sure, how might one go about finding out? An interesting question. What advice would you give someone who thought they were under a bad sign?
Oh, I see. Well, that is a good question because, there's no one in charge of tracking hex jurisdiction, right? So, it could be multiple hexes, or you might not even. What if you have bad luck, but it wasn't part of the curse or whatever? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe they have to. I don't know. Maybe for a curse like that, it has to work. It has to be. It's like when they're going to give away property, but it has to be listed in the newspaper.
Yeah.
and so maybe it has to be like that. Like if you just curse somebody in your house and then you die and nobody, it's like a tree falling in the woods. If nobody hears your curse, maybe it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like somebody has to actually know about the curse and hear about it for it to come true. Maybe. I don't know.
Of course, the obvious thing is don't get cursed. Just to make sure.
Right.
Don't make it. Don't screw with a Native American medicine man.
Right, yeah.
Don't give the business to a gypsy or Romney person, and don't screw with people. You're probably okay. Second thing I would say, advice wise, if you think you're cursed, you're probably feeling guilty. So maybe you need to look internally to see if there's something that would make you feel that way, and it's not actually an external force, but on the off chance that you have been cursed or a magical spell has been placed upon you, I would definitely go and see an expert. And the expert of your choice might be a medium, someone who is skilled in the arts of parascience that you could trust. I believe it or not, this sounds ludicrous, but I've seen this guy who's a demonologist a couple times. And this guy's no fooling. He's a master. He knows it all. And he would probably, a guy like that has a scholastic background, has a university-style background in the history of this sort of thing, would probably be a guy you'd want to turn to. I mean, you may want to go down to the fortune teller out there, down in the corner and get some action, but you've got to trust who gives you the information, right? And so a lot of it's going to come down to who do you trust dealing with such a sensitive and oddball thing. That'd be my thought.
Yeah, it's good. It could be a situation where someone goes to the doctor and they're sick, and the doctor doesn't necessarily know exactly why they're sick, but they have certain things they would do to treat them. Like they're going to give you fluids. They're going to give you, make sure that your heartbeat is stable and things like that, right? So it could be a situation where maybe, like that guy you're talking about, he doesn't know what the exact curse is, but there are certain things that he could do to try to turn those effects around.
Yeah, you also, depending on what your beliefs are, a visit to your clergy wouldn't be the worst idea. Some different religions have different tolerances on this sort of thing, but there are quite a few religions that take that sort of thing seriously, and your local pastor or rabbi or whatever toot your horn, he might be able to point you in the right direction to get some spiritual help through the church. So the good thing is that that TSI Matt asked this question, but he's actually, not only is he not cursed, but he's blessed. He's a happy-go-lucky bachelor, a fine fellow, a drop-dead handsome man, and a good friend of mine. So thankfully, Matt, you're not cursed at all because you've been gifted with the friendship of me. So you know it's great.
the best chauffeur a guy could know.
He's also one of the best bartenders I've ever known. So I'm going to give him props on that. And on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of this accursed talk. You're listening to Conversation from the Darkside.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Darkside.
And we are back to Conversations from the Darkside. Our topic this evening, Hexes and Vexes. Before we go on to our next Hex or Vex, just a quick reminder that you can, just like TSI Matt, you can contact us so many different ways. My mouth is cursed, Flack, unbelievably. You can call our automated, toll-free Conversation for the Darkside hotline at 304-397-0755, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can be the one that emails at thedarkside@email.com. You can also leave us any sorts of comments, questions in our Discord, on the Amigos Discord. Conversations with the Darkside has its own section there, and we're ready to believe you. And along those lines, Flack, you've got another humdinger here, in the same genre, but quite a different slant. What do you got here?
Well, this was an old story that I had heard a long time ago. This is about a man named Jim Jordan. And Jim Jordan was born in 1871 in North Carolina. And so I know a lot of what we think about, like curses and spells and things like that, we think of the downs, like the dark side, like cursing someone or trying to do harm to someone. But he was kind of the opposite. So he was an interesting guy. So Jim Jordan actually became one of the most famous conjurers, and he was known as a root doctor in the American South. He started his own healing practice in the 1890s. So now this was around the time when they, now, I don't know what you call them, but they called them like trick doctors. So it would be people that would do sleight of hand tricks or things like that and try to convince people, that they had magical powers for whatever reason. But this guy stood out for his honesty. So he wasn't really ever trying to trick people. Basically, what he was always trying to do was help people. In fact, he insisted that he would never do any spells or anything for evil, that he would, he said, this was his quote, he said he always worked in step with the Lord. So now this guy, you might think, like, how does this guy in North Carolina in the 1800s, like, how does he, how was he trained? Like, how did he come about some of the things that he learned? Well, his mother was named Harriet, and they think that she was mixed African and Native American heritage. So she introduced him to a lot of different types of like herbal medicine and the old school like root work traditions. Also his uncle, like this is a whole family, his uncle Alan, his uncle's name was Alan Vaughn, and it said he was a professional psychic and tarot card reader. And then his cousin it said his cousin, but then it said aunt, so I'm not really sure, but it said Aunt Joe Minton, who was a palm reader and a herbalist and a midwife. So that is somebody, if you go to her business, you want to be very specific about why you're visiting.
Yeah, you don't want her to get confused, that's for sure.
You want to know which door you're going. But this is the family that Jim Jordan grew up in, right? So he was just surrounded by all these different people. And so when he was young, he worked like as a sharecropper, like he was just doing physical labor like all these other people, he started trying to help people. Actually, in the very beginning, he wasn't trying to help people. Well, he wasn't away. He started making like love potions that he would try to sell to people or whatever. But I also read in an article that he was trying to sell goofer dust. So, I mean, I thought it was a misspelling of like gopher dust or something. I've never heard the term goofer dust. Have you ever heard that?
No, I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
Okay. Yeah, so I looked up, like, literally on Wikipedia, I looked up what goofer dust, and it says goofer dust is a magical powder in hoodoo traditions that is used to cause trouble, pain, and even death for an enemy. And it says its name comes from the Kikongo word kufa, which I guess is similar to a goofa, which means, quote, to die. So
that seems out of line with his personal beliefs, Flack.
Right. Well, this is this is young Jim Jordan. He hasn't really found his way yet, supposedly, I guess. But one of the things is, like, there's nothing in it that's actually dangerous. Like, it's not a poison, it's not anything like that. It's just something. It's almost like the pin cushion from a voodoo thing, right? Like, it's not doing anything. It's just part of whatever you're doing. But he did, basically he found his way eventually. He said he only wanted to use these powers that he had, for good and to help people. And so one of the things he was most known for was his crystal ball. So this was like a famous, like, if you look up anything about Jim Jordan, you'll see things about his crystal ball, which he told everybody, this is the legend, that it was formed when lightning struck a cypress tree. So lightning hit this tree, boom, it pops open, and there is the crystal ball. And one of the very early stories surrounding Jim Jordan was that someone came to request his services, and when he wasn't paying attention, the guy stole the crystal ball and left. He left in a car. And when he got down the road, the car caught on fire, and nothing they could do would put out the fire, and the car burned until he returned the crystal ball, at which point, when he returned the crystal ball, the fire stopped. So this just fed into the Jim Jordan legend, right? So he, like I said, he kind of built his reputation on being a healer, right? And but he wasn't like this weird, like, root doctor that lived on the outskirts of town. Like, he was like a community leader. Like, he was in town, and everybody liked him, and he was part of the community, so some of his things were like I said, like the herbal remedies, but he also did some different rituals. But his big, I guess, claim to fame, and I don't really know, I mean, this is maybe like today we just call it like a money back guarantee, but he said he would never accept payment unless his treatments worked. So if you went there and you were sick and he tried to heal you or whatever and it worked, then he expected payment. But if you didn't get better, then he wouldn't accept any money. So that kind of fed into his reputation as being a good guy, So another thing that was kind of unique about this guy was because his reputation was so good that like the local authorities would use him, right? So it wasn't just like, people that were like on the fringe of society that would come, seek this guy out. Like actual like doctors would approach him, like medical professionals would come try to get help from this guy. Again, it was kind of his, I guess, his status in society that, his reputation that made him approachable, because, late 1800s, early 1900s, I mean, there's still a lot of people are weary of people casting spells and witchcraft and things like that. But because he was just, such a upfront guy, and again, the fact that he refused to accept money for anything like if a spell didn't work or anything like that. So I guess that was kind of why he was just so liked and respected. He died in 1962.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, he left behind, like I said, there's just all these people from the town for many, many years. He literally did this full time for a career for 50 years. So from the last 50 years of his life, I guess, he did it. So there are tons of people that lived in and around this area. People would travel to come see him. And, so yeah, he's just kind of remembered, I guess, as like a healer and a protector. There was a kind of a thing where a lot of people called him almost like a poor man's psychologist, because people would come to visit him and he would talk to them and make their life a little better, and then they would pay him, so but yeah, Jim Jordan. So like I said, he's kind of an interesting guy, and one of the more recent, I guess, additions, we're talking late 1800s and early 1900s here in the US. So interesting fellow.
Very that is something we remember when last year we did our thing on potions, and how some of those cockamamie potions that stretched all the way into the 1800s easily, and even later than that, would hurt people. But there's all that's how medicine works. Somebody comes across an herb or whatnot, and it can make them seem magical in a way. And so one would wonder where the crossover is between the two, where religious belief and the imbuing power and stuff versus just the stumbling upon or being skilled enough to learn the actual formula you would need to make a proper medicine. And you can see how actual doctors would consult with a guy like that, because that's how you learn, and he may have the secrets that they've never known before. I mean, that's where everything came from. So it's funny to hear a guy like that I'm not gonna say our lifetime, but I mean not too far from me anyway.
Not too far. Our parents' lifetime.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about is, I guess, what was it, 2 years ago, where we had the big eclipse and the totality and all that.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I, we drove over to Arkansas. There was a spot where you could go and be in the totality, and I thought, I literally asked my wife, I go, why are we driving 6 miles away to see an eclipse? Like, I get what happens, right? Like, it's not magic. The moon goes in front of the sun, it gets dark. I told her, I said, if you want to see it, it happens every night for about 8 hours. It gets real dark, and then in the morning the sun comes up. It's not a big deal. And we went out there, and people were having this whole festival. And again, it was almost like the Bigfoot festival, right? Like face painting and come get your eclipse sticker and all this goofy stuff, right? And then they started passing out the glasses. You had to get your glasses, and I'm in a town of nobody that I know except for my wife. And then it starts getting kind of dark, and I mean, it starts getting weird. And then you start hearing the animals change, you know what I mean? Like birds getting quiet, and it got weird and it got dark. And I am telling you, Aaron, and I'm not doing this for the show or anything. I stood in the middle of a street and almost cried. Like, I got choked up, and I go, this is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, I can't believe that this is affecting me like this. You know what I mean? Like, it is a weird, like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew the whole thing was happening. And then when you're in that moment, it was a strange experience. And the point I'm getting to is that if you were somehow, like, if you had told it, like, you went back in time or whatever, this is the old, like the Mark Twain, but you go back and you go, listen, I'm going to hide the sun. There's going to be an eclipse. And you do that, you are a powerful wizard. You know what I mean? Like, you have done that. And so anyway, I think it only takes, I know that's kind of a long story, but it only takes one of those events, especially if it's a public thing. So, like, if somebody stole that guy's crystal ball, and he drove off in a car and it caught fire and they came back and they couldn't put it. Like, it only takes one of those things and then they're like, geez, this guy's a root doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's the real deal. Or lightning hits this tree and he finds a crystal ball. They go, you found that in a tree? Like, you're you know what I mean? So
that'd be enough for me,
really,
by the way, if someone did that. I'd be in.
Yeah. My neighbor came over and said, I'm going to make an eclipse tomorrow, and it happened. I'd be like, all right, well, now I do your bidding. I don't know what to do. I think you're in charge now. So, yeah, I just think, like, especially, 100 years ago or whatever, it only took a couple of those events to get people on your side real quick. You know what I mean? So it seems like the town bought into him pretty early on in his career. But then again, like I said, everything that he did, he said he was doing for good. You know, he wouldn't put curses on other people or do bad stuff like that. He was always trying to help people out. So I guess you got to respect that a little bit. Doesn't mean that wasn't necessarily predatory, right? But doing an erring on the side of good, I suppose.
You know, we got an interesting comment here in the chat from Seamus. He says, I suspect that thousands of years ago, there were some so intuitive and knowledgeable of herbs and the natural world that they could intuit how some plants would work as medicine. You may be onto something there, my friend. Mm-hmm. And maybe it wasn't thousands of years ago. Maybe it was hundreds of years ago. Maybe it's happening today. You know, there are still people that practice that sort of fare. And there are still people that are absolutely sticking to the herbal side of things. My dad talked to me about people he knew back when he was a kid that would go up in the mountains and pick stuff up. Even relatives that would pick stuff up to rub, sobs and stuff like that. So it makes you, of course, especially in a place like this where we're very rural. Your doctor could be a 5-day trip away or 2 days on a horse. So, there are probably people, and that was probably something that was a lot more prevalent back in the day where the world was so much bigger than it is now, where you'd have these people that could pull that sort of trick. So it's an interesting concept, and it's nice to see something good mentioned on the show about hexes and vexes, but I'm about ready to bring us back down. I bet
you're going to tell us about a really nice curse, a person that casts nice spells on people, right?
No, screw that. I'm going to talk about somebody that got screwed for life. That's the way I like to do it.
Oh, no.
For the people that were listening with us last week, you may have heard me talk about the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. And this next little article stems from that. In a way, because the person ultimately ended up in the Trans-Allegheny after the deal went down. So, and this, I'm going to file this in the old "Don't Screw with Gypsies" story. So, in the autumn, this is another thing I found courtesy Teresa's Haunted History. If you're interested in like folklore and history and the occult and paranormal, this is the place to go. It's just an excellent job, but. In the autumn of 1897, there was a lady named Mary Susan Callahan, and she was at home on a farm called the Charles Miller Farm outside Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And you know what happens in these old towns sometimes? You'll get wandering groups of Romney or gypsies that'll come around, and sure enough, that's what happened here. They were visited on the property by some local Romney types. Now, the best way to talk about gypsies, I guess, there are many words for these sorts of people, but in my mind, you've got the scarved, dark-skinned, people that will reach your palm or will. Will turn a card, as Cher said in her great song, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. And this is the kind of gypsy we're talking about here. One day, a gypsy woman approached Miss Callahan, met her at the door, and asked to come in and tell her fortune. Of course. Now, always say yes to this, Flack. I'm telling you as a point of reference. Because Miss Callahan met her at the door and told her to take off. Get out.
Oh.
the gypsy woman turned, and as she was walking away, she did spin around, and as the article says, matter-of-factly told Miss Callahan that her husband would be dead within 2 months. Bam.
Oh.
2 months. So, Callahan's never been sure if this was a curse, a warning, or a prediction of future events. I mean, I'd say curse. That's just my guess.
No.
So, anyway it went, in 1897, that would be a bad time for Miss Callahan because the prediction came true. About a month later, her husband, Thomas, was stricken ill. For 3 weeks, he was in and out of consciousness, and he languished with what doctors described as a typhoid pneumonia, or inflammatory bowels, the big three. None of those sound good. If you had to pick one, I'd go for pneumonia, and that's never good.
Yeah.
But that's your top choice.
I like my bowels how they are. Yeah.
He was unable to recover, Flack, I'm sad to say. Passed away December 5th, 1897, at the age of 47. The obituary listed the cause.
That was within the 2 month period.
Oh,
you said?
absolutely. Yeah. The obituary listed the cause of death as pneumonia, although the registry has him dying of heart disease, so the record's a little sketchy. By the way, this is all gleaned from actual newspaper accounts, so this isn't just some local folklore. So he was buried at the Elmwood Cemetery, and in addition, he had several brothers, both his parents, his sons. They were all alive, but so there was a lot of support there for Mary. But Mary was never able to recover from this. Now, we mentioned last week the things that will get you locked up in the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. It was all sorts of crazy stuff.
I've got a bad feeling about what one of them's about to be.
Yeah, well, the idea that she could have prevented her husband's death haunted her because she turned that gypsy away. It drove her, it made her crazy. And so eventually, things deteriorated to the point where in May of 1899, Mary was sentenced by Justice Moorhead Miller to be admitted to the asylum. This is back when it was called the Weston Asylum. You'll recall one of the items that you could be interred for was superstitious feelings, which is what she had, and that is where she went, and that's where we lose track of her. But she was sent to the asylum in 1899. So just goes to show you, in 2 short months, things can go real south on you real quick. Where do you fall on the old gypsy curse, Flack?
Well, I would be interested to find out if the husband knew about the curse. You know what I mean? Because that's one of those things that you always wonder, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy where if she said, oh, guess what, Larry? Guess what this gypsy told me today? And then he, whatever, maybe psychosomatic, something like that. But, gypsies, can't trust them. No, I don't. I don't know.
I've got some Romney folk in my family, if you can believe it, married into it. I had an aunt, my Aunt Sugar, and her daughter were both beautiful ladies, and of that descent. And gosh, they a mysterious but beautiful look. And I've watched a lot. I've watched enough Dragnet to know that the old gypsy gimmick can be used for the old bunco, and often is. So, so you've got to ask yourself, and of course, it's hard for people like, I'm just a schmo in West Virginia. It's not like I've known any actual gypsies that I know of, with the exception of the Sugar daughter. I never knew anybody, and no one I knew that turned a card. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if the Romney people have special insight or are touched by somebody or God knows what. But it's still something I wouldn't, I saw Drag Me to Hell, the film, where a chick pissed off her gypsy. Didn't go well for her. They didn't call it Drag Me to Hell because I had a happy ending, if you know what I mean. And so that was enough for me to steer clear of the gypsies. But it's funny, gypsies are they're a literary staple. And for a set amount of time, Sherlock Holmes books and and various books in the old days. So apparently they really did do a lot of visiting various estates and camping and stuff. So that was a real thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that were to happen in this state because it's a very rural state, people passing through. Would you let gypsies camp on your land?
Well, I think you better.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
You better make out a quick will.
Yeah.
It is always interesting. Like, I think I don't even know if it's our culture. Maybe it's just how human beings are, that we are programmed mentally to feel like what we believe is right. You know what I mean? And not only right, but let me take that a step further and say what we believe is reality. So why is our reality right versus what a gypsy's reality is, or what Chief Cornstalk's reality is, or everybody has these different backgrounds and different perspectives and stuff. So it's easy for us to say, well, there's nothing to a gypsy's curse, right? But a gypsy would probably say the same things about certain things that we do or believe. Like, I mean, what would a gypsy think about someone saying grace before a meal, and they would just go, you know what I mean? Like, they would go, what is that doing? You didn't do the gypsy dance or something. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their own traditions and things like that. So, I just think that it's again, you never know who's right. You know what I mean? And so I think I think this lady learned that maybe don't always cross the wrong person.
I will say I find that sort of offensive because I do a gypsy dance before every meal. That's how I keep my girlish figure
burn some calories.
Yeah, no kidding. Listen, we've got one more break to go, and then we're going to come back with one more morsel to throw on top of the pile of curses, hexes, and vexes you are experiencing. Conversations from the Dark Side. We'll be right back.
You are experiencing Conversations from the Dark Side.
All right, we are back with one last morsel to throw into the mix for Hexes and Vexes. Flack, you've got a real interesting item here to end the show on. What do you got this week?
Well, this is one of those old ghost type legends. It's a cursed area. This is something I heard about years ago when I first started traveling for work and heading out, to the East Coast, the DC, that kind of area. This is the old legend of Moll Dyer. She is known as the Ghost Witch of Maryland. So Moll Dyer was an Irish-born indentured servant who settled in St. Mary's County in Maryland, and this was during the late 1600s. And basically, she lived like a little quiet existence. She lived by herself in her little house until a deadly influenza epidemic broke out. And this is in Leonardtown. This is in the winter of 1697, so like the end of 1697, early 1698. And it killed a lot of people. It spread through the whole town, and of course, she was the outsider. She was the person that nobody knew. So all the townsfolk got together, and they went over to her place, and they had a nice conversation with her about it. Just kidding. They set her house on fire.
That's not the same at all.
That wasn't very, very nice to the newcomer. They were trying to burn her house down and kill her. They were like, this girl's a witch, this weird Irish girl. But she escaped. She ran out the back door, and she ran off out into the woods. And basically all she had on was just whatever clothes she was wearing. Again, this is in the middle of winter in Maryland, right? And so anyway, they went out looking for her eventually, and they found her 2 days later, and apparently she was, it said partly, so I don't know what partly means, but it says partly frozen to a large rock. Now, according to the legend, one of her hands was stuck frozen to the rock. And they say, by the way, this rock is still there, and they say that if you look, you could still see the handprint. Now, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but that's what they say. But there's an imprint of a hand shape on this rock. But that her other hand was, and it said, was making a final gesture towards the sky in a possible curse on her tormentors. Now, I can tell you, if I got run out of my house that was set on fire, my final gesture that's not what my final gesture would be. I would have one. Might not be in the form of a curse, but I would definitely be making a final gesture towards them. But anyway, so they found her frozen to death out in the woods, like I said, and frozen to this rock, which is now called Maldyre Rock. And again, it is on display in Leonardtown. But very soon after this, the people of Leonardtown started reporting bad fortune. And this became known as Maldyre's Curse. And so they have attributed many things. They said blighted crops, general misfortune, also child mortality, and strange supernatural phenomenon. Now, that one's always kind of an open-ended thing, right? But sure. But these things have all been attributed to her. Now, more importantly, they say touching the Maldyre Rock is rumored to bring people bad luck. It can also cause dizziness or illness. Now, again, you have to wonder, like, if that's only to people that know that's Maldyre's Rock, right? Like I would love to see if there's like a blind test to have like half people touch a control rock, have people touch the Maldyre Rock.
I'd bring a Geiger counter out there personally, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, see what's going on, Now, not only has this, so there's this curse basically on this forest and on this area and on this town, but and this leads into things that we've talked about on other shows, but also people have reported seeing a shadowy figure around the rock in that area. They've reported dense fog, which may or may not have a supernatural source, ghostly lights, and then again, supernatural events. So, but a lot of the reports of these things all seem to happen either on really cold nights or during the winter. Now, some of Maldyre's story was reappropriated into something else that you've heard called the Blair Witch Project. So a lot of the ideas of a witch going out into the forest and doing these things and cursing an area and stuff like that. Some of that stuff was taken from the actual Maldyre legend, but so I would, I've not been to see this rock. I've definitely, like I said, I've been to Maryland, I've been up there, but when I was there, I didn't know about this, at the time. But, that area, of course, is rich with lots of stories. You're not far from Salem witch trials and all those sorts of things. But this is something that's like still there that you could go, like this rock is still there. You could go see this rock, so.
You're not going to travel across the country to go touch a cursed rock? What's wrong with you? What kind of believer are you?
I mean, I might.
I know you might.
It
does. That sounds exactly like a road trip you might take. I'm going to tell my wife I'm going to take a 17-hour trip to go touch a rock in the woods.
I'm all in. But, what you were talking about Chief Cornstalk, again, it's that thing of, like, how mad are you when you die? You know what I mean? Like if something's so tragic happens. I don't think this lady was originally a witch. I think she was an immigrant that people, she was the outsider. People didn't know who she was. And then they were just like, oh, influenza, get the witch, burn her house, and she was rushed out of her house and into the woods and froze to death. And I'm telling you, like, if that person dies, they're going to be mad. I'd be super mad if somebody set my house on fire and I froze to death outside, So that's when I think of a curse, you know what I mean? Not like a spell, not that kind of curse, like, like I'm going to, jinx you or do something like that. But like something that is placed like a hex on a place. I think this has all the elements of that, right? Like you have been wronged and you are about to die and you are going to get revenge. If not now, then maybe later from the grave.
Though, if this lady's handprint stuck in this rock and she put her hand up, and I can only imagine the gesture I would give at this point with my other hand.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
But, and put her hands on the rock and then she puts a blanket curse on the area and then she dies. One would guess that maybe she was a witch, and so I sometimes these little old woman types that live out in the woods by themselves, and maybe like I'm sure that many of them got nicked in the Salem witch trials, for example. Sometimes they're probably just little old ladies. Like my dad lives by himself out in a small home. If you didn't know him, he could be thinking to himself, "Hey, he's out there. He's a warlock, but he's out there eating." Like Denny Moore beast to and watching YouTube. It's what he's doing. But you could think to yourself, this guy's a warlock. But on the flip side, one would wonder if there's some of these little old ladies that are actually witches. They had to have gotten a couple real ones over the millennia. I don't know if you're a Twilight Zone fan. There's an episode called Jezebel, and there's the little old woman lives out in the woods. And they go out, and supposedly she's got eerie powers, that shtick. You've heard that before. But when they go out there, she's like, oh, yeah, I love the devil. I mean, I'm super evil. Let me whip you up a love potion. It'll ruin your life. I'm down. There's got to be some people like that. They can't all be victims, right? I mean, is it just me?
I think, like there's probably the 99 point whatever % of people, like, a gypsy comes through and you don't give her a tip or you don't do something and she's like, you'll rue the day, and nothing happens, right? There's the people that had their houses burned down by angry villagers and they went out and they died and nothing ever happened, So I think that's probably the vast majority. Every now and then, I think people screw with the wrong person. It might not be every time, but every now and then maybe that's when you end up in one of these situations.
I think you may be onto something there, Flack. That's a good place to call it a night and take this one to a close before we piss off the wrong person or anger the wrong entity. Flack, if people want to know where to find your fine quality podcasts or blogs, where could they go?
The easiest thing, just go to robohara.com/links, and that's got links to my podcasts, to my blogs, social media, any place you want to follow me or see where I'm up to. That'll get you there in all one stop.
Flack just finished the part 2 of a You Don't Know Flack podcast where he talked about going to every state, which was quite interesting. By the way, thanks for putting me over, Flack, in that piece. But it was quite interesting. Flack also does Commodore 64 game reviews, and he's an all-around good egg with a great blog, and always entertaining and interesting. If you are listening to us here on the Amigos Retro Gaming Network, you'll realize that this show is a little bit out of place. We do these every October, every Friday. It's our Halloween tradition, and usually you'll find myself, my brother, the Brent, or John Boat of Cars, Schaller, doing content on retro gaming, the Amiga, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, the Atari, and many, many more. So if that's your cup of tea and you're catching us on the Halloween side, please check out our other offerings, and hopefully you'll find something that you might find interesting. Flack, let's get this out of here before the gypsies knock on the front door. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We hope to be here again this time next Friday at 8 p.m. to give it another whirl on Conversations from the Dark Side. Until next time, be seeing you.
You have just experienced Conversations from the Dark Side. Until next week, try to enjoy the daylight.